All right, hi guys. I am Dr. Joanne Michelle Martin, and today I have with me Natalie Carney. And Natalie is a sleep specialist, and I will let her tell you all about what that is, what it entails, and give you the grand old introduction as to why I think what she does is extremely necessary and extremely fabulous. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're located, and what you do.
So yeah, one, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Sleep is so important, and we're not getting enough of it, and so that's kind of why I went into this business. It was something that kept coming up for me. I was a infant teacher, nanny, and sleep was just it was always there.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not napping well, not sleeping through the night, like whatever it was, that was the sleep was always a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I do? I'll break this down into two segments because it's different for every family. For some families, they want from the very beginning to come home and have somebody there to support them with their baby.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's a doula, sometimes that's a newborn care specialist, which is what I am. And when I come into a home, I basically, in the beginning, it's just, letting everybody get comfortable with one another. And then, depending on what the goals are of family, I start implementing small things so that baby, once it's time for me to leave, is sleeping 8, 9, 10 hours a night. Just depends on what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The other half of what I do is for those families that don't have that option in the beginning to work with someone like myself. They get further down the road, their 8-month-old isn't sleeping, they're up 3, 4, 5 times a night, and they're like, I just can't do this anymore. There's no way I can survive in this way. That's when I come into their home, whether it's, via online, sort of like what we're doing right now, or actually into their home. And we work on a plan that's going to work specifically for them and their family and their needs. So like when people come to me, they're like, is this a one size fits all type situation here, working with you? And it's not, because every family is different and every, family's needs are different. And I can't say, use this, it'll work well for you if, they're maybe an attachment style family.
Mm-hmm.
I have families who are like, I can't just tell me what to do. And so we might take a different route. But all of that is, we really sit down and talk about that. I really want for families to tell me what it is that they need, they want. So we create a plan that's going to work best for them. Because if they can't do it, no point.
Right. That's awesome. And I think, a lot of the times when moms have a baby and they come home, everything is so heavily focused on the baby. And then to the point where a lot of moms aren't getting any sleep, they're not getting any rest. And if they can't function, if they can't rest properly, then they can't function properly. And a lot of that goes back to really getting the baby sleeping well. So I had a few questions with regards to scheduling, and then with regards to some of the different methodologies that exist. So I was just talking to a friend about this, and we're I'm kind of the opinion. I'm an attachment style parent only because that's culturally what was relevant for me. So my kids slept in my bed as babies, and that was normal for me. I nursed till my kids were 2, and people are like, your kids have teeth, you should stop now. And I'm like, yeah, but they had teeth before they were like 6 months. So like, I'm not just going to stop nursing my child because they have teeth. And so, like you said, it varies from person to person and from family to family, what they're used to, what they're accustomed to, what they want. But then going into some, like I said, some of the different methodologies, there's cry it out method. There is, baby wise, and there's all these different things that state and claim you should do this and you should do this. And so many moms are confused. So what do you say towards A, scheduling, and then B, specific to some of the different methodologies out there?
Okay, so scheduling by itself is important. With my experience and what I've found with babies, they need a schedule. It's how they tell time. So whether you want to call it a routine or a schedule, they need something that it is predictable for them.
Mhm.
You know, and most of the time I lay out a schedule that's we're doing, we're eating, we're playing, and then we have rest time or sleep. Um, Most babies fall within that routine. We'll eat, we'll sleep, we'll play, or I'm sorry, we'll eat, sleep, and then we'll play. And it's kind of rinse and repeat. We just keep doing that over and over and over again. That allows them to know what's happening next. So if they ate, we know we play, and then after that we sleep. Most babies will do that within a 2 to 3 hour interval. And so we kind of start there. That's where we want to start with this. When it starts to come to methodology, one, we don't really necessarily, or at least I don't, really start implementing a method until they are, 4 to 6 months of age, somewhere around in there. And it really just depends on the child and the family. And then when we start looking at methods, there's so many different methods. And when I tell parents, as far as like what method we're going to use, we're looking at what your parenting style is. What can you tolerate as a parent? And I hear this often, I can't stand to hear my baby cry, and that's real. And so we factor that into the equation. How fast do you want this to happen? If you, like you, an attachment style parent, you're okay with taking a longer period of time if it eliminates the crying. And so a lot of times, parents will say, okay, I'm cool with that as long as I can start to get bits and pieces of sleep.
Right.
And so, we factor all of that in. So we have extinction, which is where you put your baby down for the night, and then you don't go back in until a set time in the morning, whatever your set time is. I don't necessarily recommend this method. It's kind of like the last one we go to, and that's only when we've tried everything else and or find that responding to the child makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes more of a kinder method to go to, because if you're upsetting your child every time you walk in or walk out and they're losing it, you don't want that either. You want them to be able to you want them to be able to settle themselves. And if you're upsetting them more by coming in, it's really not benefiting them at all. So that's usually like the last resort. And then we've got Ferber, or what a lot of people call check and consult. And that's where you're going to come in. You're still giving your baby the chance to work through things, but you're coming in and you're checking on them, letting them know that you're still there, you're supporting them, but you trust and believe that they can do it themselves. And so that's one of the other options. Then we've got chair, for those parents who say, I can't necessarily walk out on my child. I need to be in there to make sure they're not hurting themselves, or that they can see me or something like that. You have that option as well. And that's more of a gradual method. So you take steps back away from your child, giving them a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? The ability to kind of work through, putting themselves to sleep. And then you've got pick up, put down. So those families who say, I can't quite sit in the chair. I need to be in the room with them. I need to be able to touch my child. Got pick up, put down. And then, essentially where you pick them up if they're crying, and as they calm down, you put them down. But if they cry again, you pick them right back. So it's a gentle method for the child, but it also can be taxing, because it's one of those things that you're just going to keep doing until they're able to calm down. And so those are generally like the four methods that we stay within, but also you can mix and match. And a lot of people get stuck on, I have to use just this one method. And it's just not that way. A lot of times my families will say, I need to be able to pick them up, but I think staying in the room is hard on them. So they'll come in, they'll pick them up, they'll put them back down, and they'll leave. So they'll combine pick up, put down, and check and console with one another. Uh, or they may do pick up, put down, and then stay in the chair. That one can get a little tricky sometimes, but you can work these out so that it benefits both you and your child, so that everybody is happy during this process. And you can change. So if you start with something, I say if you're going to start with something gentle, and then if you need to progress into something more direct, you can do that. And that's often what happens. Babies get to where they are more confident about putting themselves to sleep, and so you have to give them space to kind of work through that. And if you continue with what you started with, it can be a hindrance for them. So you want to start to step back. So being more direct is often good. It gives them the space to do what they need to do.
That's awesome. And I think too that sometimes a lot of parents don't remember that kids are going to go through phases. So, they're going to have teeth, when they're teething, they may be a little fussier. You may have this wonderful routine and now there's a change. They might be having a growth spurt, and that
Right.
sometimes can offset things. Or they may be sick, and that can offset things because they might be a little more clingy or whatever have you. And so sometimes even within those times, you're going to have to be a little bit more flexible. It doesn't mean that everything is falling to pieces, but
Exactly.
certainly just, that we've got to allow for some flexibility and then gradually get them back in. Or even my favorite, the birth of another child, because our daughter slept through the night. She was great. She was in her own bed. It was fabulous. And my son was born. And I remember the first night when we came home, and she said, "Why is he not in his bed?" And I said, "This is his bed, honey." And she's like, "No." And I said, "Yes." And then she just looked at me, and you could see her little eyes and the tears. And
Oh,
she's like, "But I want this to be my bed too." And then it was waterworks. And
right.
so we had to, work through with that. And, so it can be hard for a lot of parents, and they don't know. And that's why I think you are such a valuable resource, because I myself didn't realize. I knew that there were methods out there. I did not realize that there were people who could help parents implement that.
Right.
As far as sleep training, and those types of behaviors go. And I think that is a wonderful resource. Now, you did mention that you go into the home. So do you go, on a day-to-day basis? Is there like some sort of package? Because sleeping doesn't necessarily happen overnight. So how does that work?
So again, it varies. It depends on what you want to do. If you are that family who, from the very beginning at the hospital, know that you need sleep and you need that support, we come in from the day one. I've come into someone's home; they just got home from the hospital, and we're working together. And with those families, it varies, budget wise, on how long we're there, but most families I'm there for either a month to 3 months. And again, it depends on your goals. For those families who have older babies, I have several packages. One is just my basic, and that's kind of my DIY for those families who say, I think I can do this. I don't have a problem with implementing things. I just need direction.
Mhm.
Uh, that's really good for them. For those families who say, I need the direction, but I also think I might need you to come in house just to watch what's happening, make sure we're clear on how things are going. And then I would love to see how you implement, or even have some feedback while I'm doing it.
Mhm.
That in-home Shadow Me package. For those families who say, you know what, I think I've tried this, I don't have the stamina, I'm too tired, whatever the case may be, then I go in at night and implement it for them. And that's usually within like 3 days. We just kind of, I start the process for them, gives them the opportunity to catch up on sleep, and then they're refreshed so that they can take over moving forward. And then we have, support after that. But
That's pretty awesome.
yeah, it just depends on what your budget's like, where you are, how, where you want to take this process. But I try to make sure that everybody's covered.
That is pretty awesome. And now, do you do typically a lot of online consultations with moms as well? Like, what happens if I'm a mom and I am watching this and I am in Texas?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do online consultations with mom to where you can guide and instruct them
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's my basic package, because that's generally, over the phone, email, that makes sure that everybody is covered in some way.
Awesome. And now, for those listening, where are you located? What is your distance, your radius that you travel or commute for your families?
Right. So I am actually in the Clarkston Tucker area. I've been to Decatur, Brookhaven, pretty much within like 20 miles. But then I've also worked with families who are in Augusta, Columbus. As far as in-home is concerned, that's about 2-hour radius. It's about as far as I go. But then again, I have my basic package. So for those families who I can't quite reach in that way, we can always work together in that.
That is wonderful. So for any moms who are listening to this, I try to bring a lot of educational content and bring a lot of people who are working with moms who are, within this field of either birthing professionals or support professionals that are really there to help mom and guide mom through the newness of having a baby, whether it's your first baby, your second baby, your 10th baby. Each baby is different. Each stage is different. And so I like to help moms with that transition, whatever I can offer as far as education, just having other people, because who knew? And I think there are a lot of moms out there that are probably saying the same thing. Wait, there's somebody that would stay in my house and do this for me? I can actually sleep? Where do I sign? There are a lot of moms that are like that. They would do it if they knew, but a lot of people, they don't know. And so it's really been a pleasure having you and having you talk to moms about that, because I think it's so beneficial. And like I said, sleep is very important, and moms, you can't function, especially for those moms who are going back to work, 6 weeks after they've had a baby, 12 weeks after they've had a baby, their kids aren't sleeping through the night as yet. And they're having to now, deal with that on top of having to go back and be in the workforce and be out all day. And it can be very taxing.
Yeah.
So, and now, how does everyone reach you if they needed to?
So you can find me on my website, slumberosity.com, and that's spelled SLUMBERSITOY.com. You can also find me on Facebook, same handle. Those are two.
Nice. So Slumberosity on Facebook and slumberosity.com. And I will have that, when I post this, I'll have that in the links as well. So thank you again so much for sharing that knowledge with our parents. I think it's going to be very, very helpful to a lot of moms. I think it's going to be very useful. And I do know a few moms who are pregnant now that I will definitely be passing the information on to, because I think it's so worth it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.